All right, Harrison. Harrison, so you're going through something currently that's pretty interesting. Where do we start the story with your son? Is how old? Five now?
Yeah, my son's 5 now.
Tell me how this all started.
I was in the Bay Area going to visit my parents from Tahoe, and I went to karaoke. I love singing, and I was singing Mr. Brightside, and I saw a blonde girl that I thought was pretty, and I kind of sang to her and then talked to her, and we basically started dating and fell in love. So we started dating. It was kind of a up and down relationship, but we definitely loved each other. And, you know, there were some red flags in the beginning. It seemed like some mental health issues. And essentially, like very shortly into our relationship, she got pregnant. And thankfully, we were both super stoked about that. And we were both stoked when we found out it was a boy. We agreed upon the name Sawyer. Really happy thing, amazing name. But when she announced that she was pregnant on social media, she said, "Baby Sawyer, due in December. I'll love you whether you're a boy or girl or neither." And that scared me a lot, especially because she was excited it was a boy. And basically, she would have conversations with me and ask me, like, "Oh, what if our kid's trans?" And I would say, like, I'm not going to affirm a delusion with my kid. I don't think that's compassionate or loving. And that would really upset her. And it got to a point where I was just getting threatened daily that I wouldn't be able to see Sawyer for basically my political beliefs. And about halfway through the pregnancy, she sent me a letter from her attorney, broke up with me, cut off all contact. I didn't know when my son was born. I found out about a week later from social media. And one of her friends reached out and told me, showed me a picture. It's heartbreaking to, miss that day. You meet people and they're a rock star, they're a Green Beret, and they still say, "Oh, the best day of my life was the day my kid was born." So figured out what I was going to do. I ended up filing in court 2 months after he was born, and took 13 more months of court just to meet him.
In that photo on social media that you first saw your son, what was he wearing?
He was just wrapped like a baby.
Okay.
They were wrapped in a little blanket thing. Yeah, nothing crazy then.
Not pink.
Yeah.
No.
I think it was like dinosaurs or something. I don't recall exactly, but it was just like a normal baby wrap. And I basically had to do a bunch of stuff in court. Everything would just get delayed and delayed. And thankfully, I was finally able to meet him at 15 months old. I got to look him in the eyes for the first time. It was just the most miracle, frequency, magic moment of my life. Like, finally, like, you go through 15 months of just suffering. Every time you lay your head at night, just like, I literally have a son in the world who doesn't even know I exist, like, in any way. But I got to meet him. It was just incredible. Finally got to look him in the eyes, hold him, be with him. I remember it was just one of the worst times of my life were those 15 months not being able to be with him. And then when I finally got to be with him, we were spending this day together. They made it all like someone had to be there with us, like taking notes on me. So it was not as fun and happy as it potentially could have been, but it was still absolutely incredible. And I was so thankful. And I remember I was playing with him and just talking to him, and then it got to like midday and he was gonna take a nap because he's only very young. So he takes naps still. And I remember I got to put him down for his nap, and I was laying with him, until he fell asleep. He wanted me to lay with him, I was holding him. And I remember he fell asleep, and I was like, just looking at him sleeping, and I just, for the first time, just broke down, crying like I've never cried in my life. It's like it all just hit me, like, wow, I'm actually a dad now. I'm actually with my son. And, from there, got visits with him and FaceTimes. I moved to the Bay Area, and it was probably only like 3 or 4 months after that first visit, I filed in court again saying I'd moved to the Bay Area and I'd wanted more custody, and really grateful the judge immediately gave me half custody. So I got to spend more time with my son, and it was just, I was so thankful because it's really hard to be a dad in family court sometimes. As a lot of people have experienced. I didn't even get to meet him for 15 months just because I guess I wasn't on the birth certificate. It doesn't seem like a really good way of doing things. And, it was about when I won half custody, his mom started to pretend that he was non-binary. She started to call him they all the time, put him in dresses and makeup, show him different transgender things like RuPaul's Drag Race. She started to defame me horrendously, make up just the worst lies about me possible, post it on social media even. That was a hard thing to deal with. Luckily, I was able to prove it to be untrue, and it was so severe, defamation and harassment, that the court actually gave me a temporary restraining order because of the lies that were said about me being so severe. And so I got this temporary restraining order. She was calling him they, put him in dresses. I remember on his second birthday, she took him to Disneyland. When he got back, he was like, Dada, when I went to Disneyland, I couldn't go on the rides unless I wore my princess shoes, and I didn't want to wear princess shoes. I wanted to wear boy shoes. And I just thought that was such a horrible thing. You have your kid, you take him to the happiest place on earth. How could you not let them go on rides unless they wore what you wanted them to? It just seems so cruel to me. And you have a kid, and you love your kid more than anything in the world. I mean, you really, when you have a kid, it just it opens your heart to an amount of love I didn't even know existed. I didn't know I was capable of loving so much. I didn't know how much my parents loved me until I had Sawyer. And it's like, when you love someone that much, I would think you would want them to be happy with who they are. What else would you want for someone you love? So all this non-binary stuff, the temporary restraining order for defaming me, his mom ended up getting arrested for child endangerment and placed on a 5150 hold while he was with her. So I brought all those things to court to try to get full custody of him. And took a long time to get this all to happen, and we ended up having a trial months later. And it ended up being a 5-day trial, 5 afternoons. We have all this evidence and police officers and witnesses. And you feel like most people go to family court and they get a 20-minute hearing and their whole life's decided and that's it. So I feel that I have this chance to actually say, look what's going on and how crazy it is and how he'd be safer with me and how he knows he's a boy, not a girl, because he would always fight his mom on it, and say, I'm a boy. He'd yell at her. One time she messaged me on the court app, our family wizard that we would talk on, saying oh, Sawyer was yelling at me saying that he's a boy and I'm a girl and how dare you do that. He ended up biting me and just basically admitting that they had gotten into a physical altercation over it, which I just thought was mind-blowing that she would even admit that on the court app. And I believe she started identifying as non-binary herself, something like that. And so we have this 5-day trial, and I just was so thankful to actually get all this evidence put out there, tell the court what's going on. But a few months later, the court renders their decision, and they decide that they're going to keep custody 50-50. They have nothing to say about the gender stuff. That's between us. And I was heartbroken, was devastated. I'd given my all to try to protect Sawyer, and I didn't know what to do next. I'd spent, all my money on attorneys, and I tried to come up with some sort of plan to protect him. I knew I had to do everything it takes to protect him. I would do absolutely anything for him, just like every parent, every person should try to protect children and their innocence. They're the most pure, amazing amongst us. We have to protect people like that. We have a duty as a dad to protect your kid. I decided I was going to start speaking about it publicly, and I'm thankful to the Daily Wire who, broke my story, and Matt Walsh, and they retweeted it. And it just ended up being this whirlwind where I started speaking out on a bunch of podcasts and going to the California Capitol to testify on some of the crazy anti-parent bills they have going on in California, like AB 957, which was to tell courts in family court to rule with the gender-affirming parent, and 665, which was letting kids, I believe 12 and older, basically go to government homes so they can pursue, transgender things without their parents' knowledge. A lot of really scary bills. And I just found myself in this place of being an advocate for parental rights all of a sudden and protecting children, and met all these incredible people. I've done all these interviews, and it's just been surreal, really. And I was able to raise some money for attorney fees to appeal the court's decision about the trial, to try to say, hey, we think you guys got it wrong. And I go through a long period of just speaking out as much as I can, everywhere I can, just to protect Sawyer. And in March of last year, I was at home, custody still 50-50, and I got a phone call. It was the San Francisco police, and they told me to pick up my son. So I went right there, picked him up, and super thankful to the police officers and to CPS in San Francisco. There's good people at CPS, there's good people in the whole world, everywhere you are. I think the line between good and evil is in all of our hearts, and you have to choose for yourself which part of you, if you want to be good or evil, every one of us has to choose that. And I feel like it was miraculous, the CPS workers I got, because I've heard a lot of horror stories about CPS even taking kids from safe, healthy parents just for not being gender affirming. But in my case, they took this arrest really seriously. They did a very thorough investigation for months and months, and interviewed me a bunch. I showed them all the court documents and history. I had 5 of my ex-girlfriends had written letters for me on my behalf because all the lies that were made up about me. I'm super thankful to all of them. It's an extremely kind thing to do. It's really hard to reach out to someone you used to date and be in love with and tell them that something so crazy is happening and you need their help. And they did that for me. It blows my mind that people are that kind.
Were there signs with Sawyer's mom that she was mentally unstable before this all happened?
Yeah, when we were dating, she clearly had some mental illness problems. I wasn't sure what. It was extremely up and down. She would just be the sweetest, most loving person ever, and then a few minutes later could just be the cruelest person I've ever met. So it was a really interesting dichotomy of ups and downs. I had never experienced anything like that. It was, in my opinion, just the most severe mental illness I had seen.
It sounds like there were signs of her wanting the child to be.
Yeah, of course. Like, she posted about it on social media. She asked me about it.
But even before Sawyer was born?
Yeah, before he was even born. And
does Sawyer show any inclination to want to be female?
He's thankfully always said he's a boy, adamantly. He knows he's a boy, and it's just incredible to see that he has that sort of rebellious spirit in him to not buy into that, because unfortunately I know a lot of parents and kids where the kid buys into that. When the parents push this on the kids, and you want love from your mother or your father, and when they're going to withhold that love or not let you go on the rides at Disneyland unless you do something, a lot of kids fall into it and start to believe it themselves. Your kid will tell you they're Spider-Man all the time, and you don't just be like, oh, okay, let's go to the highest buildings and swing off. They tell you that they're a pirate, and you're not like, okay, let's cut off your leg and poke your eye out and give you an eye patch and like a little parrot on your shoulder. We don't affirm like any of these crazy delusions. Kids say they're a dinosaur, the astronaut, all these things all the time, and we don't play into it. But for this one thing, we're playing into it as a society where we're literally cutting healthy body parts off of children and giving them puberty blockers and hormones that are sterilizing them for life, making them never develop. There's young women I know that are detransitioners, like Chloe Cole, Laura Becker, and they got their breast removed, and they regret it now, and they can never breastfeed their potential future babies if they're lucky enough to even be able to have babies after taking all those hormones. And I don't understand how as a society we're letting something so just evil happen and letting children make decisions. Like, we don't let kids smoke. We don't let them get a tattoo. We don't let them join the military. They can't do any of these things as a minor, but yet we're letting them pretend that there's something they're not and sterilizing them for life. It's heartbreaking. To me, it's the battle of our lifetime. Our society, this is like lobotomy, this is like slavery. We need to stop this evil.
And kids are allowed to make these kind of decisions at a very young age, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They'll socially transition kids at any age. I mean, some people have their babies born now and they say that they don't have a gender. They're going to let the baby choose for themselves. It's absolute insanity. And there's kids that get Lupron and different, chemical castration drugs as young as 11 that I've seen, and probably younger in some cases. It's horrifying. And the parents that try to stand up against it, schools will take your kid. You have my son Johnny's going to school. When he gets to school, they'll give him a dress, start calling him Charlotte. Everyone at the school will know that. Everyone will treat him as a girl, and everyone will keep it from the parent. And they even passed a law in California to make that the standard. So our whole society is just caving to this radical idea that kids can change their gender, and they can't.
Lupron is a drug that blocks.
It's a puberty blocker, I believe, and it was used back in the day to chemically castrate sex offenders in prison, and they deemed it to be too inhumane to continue to do that to prisoners that are adults that had done horrible things. And yet now we're willingly giving it to kids at 11 years old. So that says a lot on its own.
Yeah.
And I've met some of the most incredible people through all of this, lots of other parents I've talked to, and most of them, when they speak out against the gender stuff, they lose custody. Full custody goes to the mom who wants to pretend the little boy's a girl, and they don't even let the dad see the kid. And if they're lucky enough to see the kid in that case, they want them to be on a little supervised visit where they have to call their son a girl, and they're being watched. And if they don't do that, they can't see their son. And that's just such a terrible position to put a father in. You have to force them to lie just to see their kid.
Did you need a team of lawyers to win this case?
So what ended up happening is, March of last year, I got that call. There was a big CPS investigation. I believe the day after, filed an ex parte in family court for temporary custody, immediate emergency full custody. They actually denied it, which was just like radical, because they really are supposed to take those very seriously. And so some of the things from the arrest allegedly were, she basically was arrested for assault and battery, I believe, and elder abuse, and she was fighting her dad. And they live in San Francisco. She has two dads. She was adopted as a baby. And I guess, one of them she often fights with, and Sawyer was there for this, but she was fighting with him physically, and I've seen the police report and the photo evidence, and it was so severe that I believe she broke his nose. They both look bloody in the police evidence, and he said he feared for his life. And so basically Sawyer snuck up actually while the fight was happening to see what's going on, and he's 4 years old at the time. And he sneaks up with his little kid's baseball bat, I believe. They called it a bowling pin or something in the police report. It looked like a plastic kid's baseball bat to me, but either way, he sneaks up to see what's happening with his mom, as anyone would. And according to his mom, he did this on his own. According to Sawyer, when he snuck up and they noticed, she said, hit him in the face, hit him in the face. And I tend to believe Sawyer. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. But either way, my son at 4 years old had to hit his own grandpa in the face with a kid's baseball bat. And I saw, even in the police photo evidence, a bloodied kid's baseball bat. And I just think that's a tragedy that no 4-year-old should go through. And what adult, when something like that is happening, wouldn't tell the 4-year-old, run away, run away? It's just, how could something like that even happen to a 4-year-old? I just feel so bad for the kid. And he's such a strong boy, you know? Like, who has to be in a position? It's admirable that he would want to protect his mom. Like, I love that. That's admirable. But not at 4 years old. No 4-year-old should be in that position. And, you know, basically the family court denied my ex parte, and then thankfully CPS, San Francisco, California, stepped up. They said, that's okay. We're not going to let him, you know, be with her. We don't feel that that's safe. And they gave her supervised visits, and they did a really long investigation, 3 or 4 months. And I showed them all the court documents, you know, just always openly talk to them without an attorney. Mom would only talk to him with an attorney, hardly tell them anything. And thankfully, I got the CPS workers I did. They didn't care about politics. You know, Mom tried to paint me as right-wing and all these different things, when in reality, I'm just a dad that loves his son and wants to protect him. And it came down to court for CPS. It's called dependency court. It's like a step above family court. And so there's Mom and her attorney, me and my attorney that was appointed to me, Sawyer and his attorney called minors counsel that they appointed him, CPS and their attorney. So the actual CPS worker and then the CPS attorney. And we all came to an agreement, essentially, mainly because of that incident. There was also, you know, the first arrest, and there was also a second. So that was the third incident where CPS was called. I guess I didn't even know about the second one until all of this. There was a second event where she had fought with her dad another time, and I guess CPS was called, and no one even told me about it. But thankfully this time, they took it seriously, and we all came to the agreement of giving me full physical custody of Sawyer and split legal custody, but with the decision-making ability when we don't agree. So essentially, full legal custody too. And it's a miracle. It's a dream come true. Like I feel like I actually saved Sawyer, which was always my dream and I always believed, but it's just, I've seen so many dads lose custody, so many people lose custody. The family court system's not a fun place.
Are there a lot of cases where the person who's in favor of a transition wins out?
Yeah. I mean, I have parents reach out to me all the time. I'm close friends with a few of them, you know, that haven't even seen their kids in years. It seems that anyone who goes against the fake gender, anyone who tries to speak truth and reality, saying, no, my kid's a boy, he'll always be a boy, seems to lose custody entirely, whether that be to the other parent or if that's not even the case where both parents agree, sometimes CPS will take custody too. So I hear it all the time. It's usually moms that trans the kids, but I've actually talked to a few moms where the dad was the one doing it.
Really?
Yeah. That's a lot more rare, but it's happening all over our whole country. California is especially bad, but.
And is it usually a male-born child that is being encouraged to transition to female?
No, it's both.
It's both.
There's a big trend right now of teenage girls doing it. It's like one of the girls gets in some Reddit loophole online, and once one kid does it, all the other kids start to sort of follow it, and there'll be like friend groups of teenage girls that are, you know, all trans or non-binary or some weird experimental thing. I mean, schools even I have a friend in Colorado and thought her kid was going to art club, and they even called it art club. And when they went to art club, it was basically just an LGBT XYZ whatever like event where they encouraged all the kids to like pick a different gender than just being normal, pick a different, you know, sexuality than being straight. It's just, and they called it art club. So, I mean, it's being encouraged all over. And yeah, when parents don't go along with it, a lot of people are trying to take the kids from them. And I think that the opposite is true. I think that it's child abuse to let a kid make a life-altering decision that can castrate them for life, sterilize them for life, actually cutting off body parts of children, that's happening. Literal children are having healthy breasts, penises removed, and then having to live with that the rest of their lives, and many of whom regret it and come out later and say, look, I shouldn't have been able to do that when I was 15 years old. Like, why did you let me do that? And I'm thankful to start to see, I feel this momentum of people waking up to basically the evil of this and wanting to push back against it. And we need more people to speak up and fight back. So,
how old are you?
I'm 32.
32. You're a lot younger than I am, but do you recall when you were in like high school, there was a lot of this kind of stuff going on?
When I was in high school, I don't recall any transgender kids at all. It wasn't really a thing even then, like 15 years ago. So it's clear that there's this trend.
There seems to be more of it now than ever, and could be the awareness. But like when I was in high school, I went to a large high school, and I remember maybe one kid that might have been gay.
Yeah. No, I didn't see any of it. There's good studies and books on this. I would encourage anyone to read like Irreversible Damage by Abigail Schreier. It's clear that there's something not organic happening. There's way too many kids. It's something like 1 in 8 in the Bay Area identifies as something other than what they truly are. I'll just call it, because I don't even want to use their words. But I mean, it's just terrifying. Like you send your kid to school now and you have to wonder if someone's going to try to convert them, groom them into being something they're not, into believing there's something they're
Let's not look at the plastic or the pesticides or the cell phones or the whatever.
Yeah.
Hormones in the meat.
Yep.
It's an interesting time.
It is. But we have a chance to push back against it and put it in the rearview mirror, be the ones who stood up when no one else was standing up. I mean, we're all going to have to look our kids in the eyes, our grandkids in the eyes, and say what we did in this moment in history. So history is going to look back and say, how insane are they for doing that? Who would have let little kids chop off their breast and take Lupron? What is wrong with those people? Just like we look back on slavery and say that was insane. How did more people not speak up against that? Lobotomies, prescribing pregnant women cigarettes. We now know that that is a very bad idea. We don't do it anymore. This is no different. Everyone thinks of, slavery. Like they would have been the one to do something. World War II, they would have been one to help, hide the Jews. Or you watch Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and you always envision yourself sort of as like, oh, I'd be with the good guys. I'd be standing up and being brave and saying like, oh, we're not going to let you do that. Well, here's your chance in real life. You have a chance right now to speak up when most people aren't, even though most of us, even in the Bay Area where I live, know it's wrong. Everyone I talk to says this trans stuff's gone way too far. It's crazy that we're doing this to kids. But most people don't have the courage to actually say anything. And if more of us just spoke up, it would end. If everyone said what they truly believed, the children would be protected.
That must have been a hard battle for you, to not even be able to see your son knowing that this was going on.
It was a struggling time, but it built character and made me a stronger man, to be a stronger advocate for, protecting kids, and to be a better dad for my son. I think that everything happens for a reason, and that built something in me to be stronger and better than I was, to become who I needed to be, to protect Sawyer, to save Sawyer, to be the best dad I can be.
Looking back, are there things you wish you had done differently?
No, I wouldn't change a thing. It's made me all of who I am inside, And I really think we're going to stop this crazy transgender nonsense, and we just have to keep speaking up. I want to see legislation passed. I want to see it classified as child abuse to do this to kids. How are doctors that swear an oath to do no harm harming kids, making millions of dollars off of it, they become a lifelong patient when they're a transgender kid or whatever. They have to take these puberty blockers for life. They're not just like go one time. It's a constant cycle of pills, surgeries. Sometimes they have to redo the surgeries because they're very ineffective and don't work very well. I mean, if people saw the pictures of it, it's barbaric, like Frankenstein looking. They take skin out of their arms or legs to put it other places and create fake genitals. I mean, it's a seriously scary thing, and it just seems like everyone's oblivious to the actual reality of what it is, which is harming kids, and just, it's evil. It's sick.
All right. Harrison, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much,
I'm glad
man.
you and your son are doing well.
It's a miracle.
Keep the fight going.
I absolutely will.
All right.
There's a lot more kids to save, though.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.